showcase the ways in which progressives and leftists of all different stripes can be moving in the same direction, and what are we up against in our respective battles when it comes to building systems outside of the status quo. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So to introduce the panel a little further, social justice and progressive movements across the country are in agreement that this year's presidential election threatens to foster ultra-right-wing fascism in the form of a second Donald Trump term. But with the last-minute switch in the Democratic Party from Joe Biden to VP Kamala Harris, the left is once again splintered and divided on the question of whether we throw our support for Harris as a way of stopping Trump, or do we abandon the Dem GOP duopoly in favor of growing third-party leftist progressive movements? Dr. Stein is once again the nominee in the Green Party after a 2016 run that saw her garner 1.5 million votes, or just over 1% of the electorate, which is an extraordinary achievement in our duopoly and our two-party system. So round of applause for that. And the fact that both parties on the stage today have ballot access in over 20 states, so we're very excited about that as well. So if you've been organizing on behalf of the Green Party or the PSL, we thank you, because that ballot access is a huge hurdle, as you probably know, and that's an extraordinary achievement. To get us started, I would like both representatives to address the issue of the spoiler. Most corporate news have and will continue to ignore our leftist and progressive campaigns. They'll say that our candidacies are irrelevant, or worse, perhaps a tool by foreign adversary governments to alter the outcome more in their favor. So how would you reply? And I'll ask to start with Ms. Garcia. Yeah, it can be discussion. It's not super formal. Not at all.
I actually feel more comfortable standing.
Please do.
Can I?
There we go. Okay, fine, thank you. I'm 1 week short of 8 months pregnant. But I'm so excited and so happy to be here with you all today. I'm originally from Southern California, and so it gives me a lot of pride and a lot of excitement and enthusiasm to be here. I think right now is a really, we hear a lot of talk about being a historic moment and an inflection point. That's true. It is a historic moment. It is an inflection point, but not for the reason that they want us to believe. They want us to believe that it's between fascism and democracy. And the reality is, the truth of the matter is, this country has always had both. It's always had an element of Jim Crow fascism, and it's always had an element of democracy. Right? And the extent to which one dominates is related to the struggle and the organization of our people. And when I say our people, I'm talking about working class people. Yeah. Working class people of every nationality. That the struggles of our own people are the things that put both parties back into place. So it's not, for us, a struggle between fascism and democracy. That, we're clear. That's existed in this country for a long time. For us, it's a historic moment because there are huge numbers of young people and whole communities who have been betrayed by both parties. And they are ready and they are willing to build an alternative. So the question for us is, are we going to welcome them and build an alternative? Or are we going to funnel them back in, out of fear, into the same rigged system that has been killing our people? See, the young people who are paying attention all around the country, they've seen the betrayal. And I feel personally, as somebody who started organizing since I was 17 years old, I feel like I'm having deja vu. I saw the new Kamala Harris video. Beyonce, music, and then at the end, they pull out all the things, right? And then at the very end, what do? When we fight, we win. A slogan from our movements, from labor movements, from civil rights movements. Who did something similar in 2008? What did Obama say in 2008? Si se puede. Si se puede, he said. Because the students targeted the Democratic Party. That's why. Because they went into their offices and they did sit-ins. That's why. Everything that we want in this country, it's always been because we've been fighting for it. And it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. In fact, we've won some of the most important reforms under Republicans. When was the last time we got an immigration reform? The amnesty. 1986. Who was that? That was Reagan. A big, bad Republican. And he didn't do it because he became a friend of the working class. He was no friend of the working class. Right? They do it because it serves their system. And what about affirmative action? Nixon, of all people. So we can win under Republicans or Democrats if we're willing to fight. Are you willing to fight?
Yes.
Are we going to let these people funnel us back into a system that is killing our people and destroying our planet? You know, I want to spoil what they have. I want to spoil. I'll be proud to spoil it. Because I'm tired of being dragged by these people who for the last 50 years have been using our communities and our families to get votes, to fundraise. They want to pretend that they're the champions of reproductive freedom now, right? They think we're stupid. Stupid is the politician who thinks that the people are stupid. Because they could have guaranteed and made our rights, abortion rights, they could have made it, codified it federally. For the last 50 years, they had a majority under Clinton, under Carter, under Biden, under Obama, and they never did it. Instead, what did they do? Every election cycle, they use our rights to fundraise and get votes. Even in 2020, Biden, they still fight the filibuster. You got the majority of the people with you, right? Fight it. Now's the time to fight it. And did he fight it? No. And neither did Kamala. And let's not forget, she's his number 2. So they're trying to play a cute little game right now, and they're trying to present a new image for us, but no amount of Beyonce music and no amount of whatever they're going to pull out is going to make us forget the genocide that we've been watching for the last 10 months. And the betrayal of the worthless party that no longer doesn't deserve our respect, doesn't deserve our penny, and doesn't deserve anything from our people. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Extraordinary. Dr. Stein, and I think this is a topic that you probably have spoken on before and have been accused of things in the past. What is your feelings on being called spoiler and how that affects this moment?
Yeah. Check, test.
Now? Okay, all right, great. So I will stand as well. And thank you to Karina for summarizing this incredible moment. It is an historic moment. It's an historic moment because empire and oligarchy and genocide and rising fascism have gone far enough, and we the people are standing up to say no. And while they may be having great conventions and lots of brouhaha and all the mainstream media in the world to try to make you think that resistance is futile and that everything is going just fine, that's completely outrageous. And we say no, and we say no more. No more genocide, no more empire, no more oligarchy, and no more fascism. And I want to cut to the chase here and say that the real response, how do we defeat fascism? How do we defeat Donald Trump? It's not by putting a new face on Joe Biden. Same policies, new friendly face, nice clothes, good music. That's basically what their campaign is. We say we need to throw it out and completely replace it because neoliberalism is not the solution to neo-fascism. It is the cause of neo-fascism.
Right.
It is because we have seen this agenda of privatization, of austerity, of tax giveaways to the super rich. That is what is driving the misery NAFTA and similar global trade arrangements. When did the Democrats lose their stranglehold on power? It was really in 2010. Why in 2010? In 2010, they lost 1,000 seats in state legislatures all across the country, not because of some third-party challenge. They lost 64 seats in Congress, not because of some strong third-party challenge. They lost 12 seats in the Senate and 12 governorships. Why did they have this massive wipeout? Because they had just bailed out Wall Street and thrown out homeowners to the tune of millions upon millions of dollars. So we know who they are and we know what they do. And to solve this problem, all the cheerleading in the world is not going to do it. How do we do it? We do like France did just a couple weeks ago. We get together on the left and we form a strong unified front against fascism and against neoliberalism, and we stand up. We stand up for an America we deserve, and we stand up for a world that we deserve. And it's no surprise with over 60% of Americans now living paycheck to paycheck, with 50%, 1 out of every 2 Americans now struggling just to keep a roof over their heads, spending from 30 to 50% of their income. This is half of all Americans that are truly struggling, that are within 1 to 2 paychecks of being evicted, and eviction rates are skyrocketing. Homeless rates are at an all-time high. Driving here from the airport last night and then this morning just to see, the encampments of people who have been thrown out, humanity that has been abandoned. Right here, there is a war on working people in this country and around the world, and we are not going to be talked out of it. And all the PR and spin in the world is not going to make it okay. It's not going to make it all right for 44 million students who are living in unpayable student loan debt, for 100 million Americans who are living in unpayable medical debt, for 18 million Americans who cannot afford their pharmaceuticals, 8 million who are driven into poverty in this country because of healthcare expenses, in the wealthiest country in the world that spends over twice as much as the next spender on our healthcare, yet we have abysmal health statistics. And one final dot I want to connect, which is our military budget, which devours half of our congressional budget, our congressional dollars, which we need urgently here at home for healthcare and housing and education and to fight the climate crisis. Instead, that money is being spent on endless wars that do not make us safer, that actually endanger us and endanger the whole world. We are progressing towards nuclear conflict now in 3 regions around the world, in an extremely dangerous way that the mainstream media is not even covering. You have to look hard and long even to find a mention of it. But we are in accelerating and severe danger. This bloated military budget does not make us safe. It makes us incredibly endangered. So this is a simple problem. It is a problem of power. As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, it never will. Do not let them talk you into powerlessness or into silence and intimidate you out of voting for who we are and what we deserve. We deserve a unified, radical, progressive front. Absolutely. And like I said, the whole spoiler concept is completely false. If people want to know about spoiling, just tell them about what happened in 2010. The Democrats have spoiled it for themselves. It's eminently clear they are not going to fix it for us. We are the only ones who will do that, and kudos to everyone who had the courage
that feels unifying. It's the message that we can get behind from both of you, these powerful women on stage right now. And this is the vibe that we're hoping to set today with this conversation. Right? We can have different ideas on how to get to justice and liberation for our peoples, but we have got to get there together. It only works if we link arms, ladies and gentlemen, and my siblings in the audience. It only works if we link arms together. I want to touch on a little bit of what you were saying, Dr. Stein, because there is a new face on the Democratic ticket now, and you know there's an obvious shift in the messaging and PR. The language has gotten a little stronger, just a little stronger on the issue of the ceasefire. Not too much, not enough to upset the donors. But you have some people saying, like, well, what we had before was two wildly unviable candidates, right? And what we have now from the Democrats is someone who seems and feels more viable, right? And so, to go a little deeper into the idea of the spoiler, or how we message together that this is still a ripe moment, right? If you remember your poli-sci 101, like this is a ripe moment for, you know, leftists and progressives to have independent and third-party campaigns. How do we continue that momentum when it is, in some cases, being undercut by this younger, newer, you know, the woman of color, Kamala Harris, who we know is, you know, has a background in law enforcement, but right now she's being held up as, you know, even more progressive, which we know is not true. But Dr. Stein, what do you think?
Yeah, and let me say that the challenge is not only this pretty face and this effort to kind of change the channel, and let's deny the last 30, 40 years of Democratic Party history and Republican Party history. Let's ignore the fact that it's not getting better. It's not only not getting better, it's actively getting worse by the day, whether you're looking at the climate meltdown and the fire that's burning out of control right now in Northern California, the many forest fires expected going ahead, you know, the other climate emergencies that are full in force, whether you're looking at the continued meltdown of the economy and the struggle of working people to simply survive, the worsening of the foreign policy situation, and while there may be a little bit of talk now about how wonderful it would be for Israel to please do the right thing, Israel's not going to do the right thing. Joe Biden, like Kamala Harris, have the power right now to make Israel do the right thing. That's the only way that will happen. Simply by making a phone call, they could end this genocide and save 1 million lives that are on the line right now from the starvation that is strangling Gaza at this very moment. So this is BS. This is BS on their part. But aside from this new public relations campaign, look at what the Democrats are doing to us, to Karina and Claudia and myself, and likewise to Dr. West. What they are doing, they proudly announced back in March, they have hired an army of lawyers to conduct lawfare, that is to abuse the law and try to find details to either throw us off the ballot or to tie us up in court and exhaust our resources, which is what they are doing. They also publicly advertised, if you can believe it, they had the nerve to publicly advertise for infiltrators and spies and for paid positions to manage this army of infiltrators and spies. It goes a long way to explain some of the internal conflicts and factions that miraculously appear every election year, certainly within the Green Party, and raises real questions about how do we handle that as an open, small d democratic, decentralized organization. But they are doing that, and then most recently, I don't know if you've heard about this, but we qualified for initially almost $300,000 in matching funds. And we got one email from the FEC saying, give us your bank numbers, we're about to start transferring that money that you have qualified for. And 9 minutes later, we got another email, an unofficial email that had no letterhead on it, saying, oops, sorry, the Treasury Department says they can't give you the money now. We can't give you the money until the that they're going to refuse their billion-dollar donors for a measly 17 million in public funds. Yet that is what Treasury is using as an excuse to deny us the money from getting on the ballot across the country. We are currently on the ballot for a majority of voters, so that the majority of voters will have an anti-genocide, anti-war, pro-worker, climate emergency campaign and choice on the ballot. All voters deserve to have that because most voters want it. So they have basically ripped the funding out from under us in order to stop us from proceeding with our ballot drives right now. We're on the ballot for a majority. We need to be on the ballot for all voters so we can truly fight empire and change our direction.
Dr. Stein, really quick, what is the mechanism that allows them to sort of intermingle the parties and allow one party's decision to affect another?
Congress set this up by, I want to say secretly because nobody knew about it, they secretly raided the public matching fund. It was over $400 million. Where did that money come from? You and me. When we pay taxes, if you check off the form, so that we'll have a public funding option for candidates who want to say no to that system of legalized bribery. And that system needs to be massively improved. It needs to be the only system. There should not be private money and billionaire money. We should have a free money system. But Congress wants that to be passé because they got a good thing going, and they raided the fund unbeknownst to anyone so that there's only 17 million. The fact that there's only 7, which is plenty for campaigns like ours, for grassroots, low-budget campaigns, that's all we need. But they basically reduced it to a level where clearly the major party candidates are not going to compete for it. And there is some little rule somewhere that allows Treasury to prioritize the final campaigns, the general election, rather than the primary. So they can now say to us, we cannot give you primary funds until we know that they're not going to be used in the general. That is preposterous, because no one is going to use them in the general. They would have to forego their $1 billion and more in private funding.
So they're just stalling you.
They are totally just stalling. And unfortunately, you could take it to court, but we've seen what the court does in these kind of ambiguous cases. It would be extremely expensive and time-consuming. So we are hoping to really, create a public outcry. They are destroying public funding. In doing that, they are doubling down on corporate control of our election system, and we need to be screaming about that.
For shame.
Shame.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia, you have comments on this?
Okay. Yeah, I think that the task is so much greater than what they want us to believe it is, right? They want us to go back to sleep. They want us to just be like dragged, sleepwalking into whatever vision of the future these billionaires have for us. So the least we can do is just vote one day and then go back home. That's what they want. They don't care if millions and millions and millions of people don't vote. They actually really don't. They prefer that. They prefer our people to be hopeless, to feel isolated, to feel small, to be apathetic. And that's why they do everything in their power to make it like that. What we have to internalize, all of the people in this room, because it's going to take all of us in this room, we need to move millions. We need to move millions of people. And that's why I want to push back. Sometimes people say, well, why don't you guys just all unite these parties, Green Party, this party, and just do one new party? That's not going to solve the problem. The fact of the matter is, the left is small. There are millions and millions of people who are unorganized. because they never send their own kids to war. They never go themselves. They always choose our people to fight their wars. Well, our people are getting tired of fighting their wars. They come into our neighborhoods, they set up their military recruitment, and they're able to succeed because our people are lacking in education, people are lacking in being able to get good jobs, and so this is an opportunity, and our people are brave. Our people are brave, and that's how we end up losing some of our people to the military. But these problems are not unsolvable. We know the cause, we know the root cause of climate change, fossil fuel companies. And they've known since the 1970s that their entire industry was going to destroy the planet, was going to destroy us. And what did they do? They used their political system to buy off our politicians and to continue to muddy the waters and tell us that climate change is not real. Well, we are at a point right now where we don't need no studies, we don't need any research, we can see it, we're feeling it. We see the heat, we feel the heat, we've seen the wildfires, we've seen the intensity and the frequency of these hurricanes, and it's not unsolvable. In our program, if we were able to, and we can, triple the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions for the next 6 years, which we can do, we would be able to stop this catastrophe. If we were to use the $1.7 trillion for just one F-35 jet program and use that money instead for infrastructure, to rebuild our bridges, to improve our schools. Our public schools have a D+ rating in terms of their infrastructure. If we use the trillions of dollars that they spend on war to rebuild this country, that would create millions of jobs. And what does that do? That solves the other problem of job destruction. In the hands of the capitalist class, every kind of technology is used against us. Artificial intelligence in the hands of the capitalist class is actually used to deny people their health care. Health insurance companies are using artificial intelligence to more quickly deny claims. And they target older people, and they target people with disabilities. That is not inevitable. We could use technology to improve our lives. It doesn't have to cause the destruction of millions of jobs. They want us to believe that that's going to happen, that's inevitable, that's where we're going. No, it doesn't have to. And the Democrats are just as responsible as the Republicans, because since 1996, 30 million jobs have been lost. 30 million jobs, and they never talk about the impact of unemployment. They never talk about the impact of unemployment because it doesn't hurt them. But actually, unemployment, medical studies have shown that the impact of losing your job is more stressful. It actually causes disease. It actually causes disease. It's like the number 7 most stressful life event. It's comparable and worse actually than losing some of your vision and some of your hearing. It's worse than losing a loved one. It causes disease, but they never talk about that. Instead, they want us to believe that all of the working class communities are, all the white working class people are Trumpers. And the reason they don't vote for the Democrats is because they're all just a bunch of racists. That's one thing that I'm grateful for this campaign, is that me and Claudia, we've been working in our communities, working class people of color for a long time. We're very familiar with the problems that we're facing, because we're facing them too. But we have not seen the white working class. And we have been seeing the problems that they've been facing too. We went to Ohio, we went to Pennsylvania, some of these places where supposedly it's just a bunch of racists now, right? Well, if you live in a small town in Pennsylvania with a few thousand people, and just like that, 1,000 jobs are lost. And now, all of your community is competing for 2 to 3 jobs at the Dollar Tree. You're not gonna be mad? You're not gonna be like, I'm not gonna go over that.
You can argue, it's okay.
I'm sorry. But you know what I'm saying? Like, these are material reasons, and they rely on the fact that we don't go out in our communities and talk to our people. And instead they have us scared. They come with the nonprofits to tell us that the reason for Trump and all these problems is the racist white working class. No. A lot of those white workers would have voted for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, they do.
And the Democratic Party sabotaged Bernie Sanders. They stole that election from Sanders, and now miserable, unpopular, nobody cares about Biden, so he could win. So they sabotage themselves. She's right. They sabotage themselves. Sorry, I will go on.
That's okay, that's okay. You're doing great. We love this. I want to ask you about something you said in the beginning that comes up again and again, where people say, why don't all the third-party independent candidates join together under one party? And I pose back the question, why are you telling people how to organize and where to organize, right? Because, like, some people work on mutual aid, and some people find their passion, fighting for healthcare policy, and, everybody finds their own path when it comes to organizing for a better world, right? So if you have found a home in the PSL or in the Green Party or somewhere else, or perhaps like Dr. West, you're forging a new path, like all those things are acceptable, right? And so the idea that you have to choose one because there's not enough of us and we all have to compromise a little bit to get forward is not necessarily, we don't have to compromise in like what inspires us to organize, right? Or where we find our home that feels like the safe and right place for us to do that organizing. And so I would love to talk a little bit about what that means to you, and if I may ask, not necessarily in campaign mode, but with your organizer brain, why do you find a home in the party that you do, and what are the ways in which we can grow these efforts, and a little bit about, what does it look like on the ground inside your party? Dr. Stein?
Great. To me, this question drives the same kind of conclusion that I'm taking from our current crisis, from this crisis in every dimension of our lives, this crisis of crushing inequality, climate collapse, endless war verging on nuclear, rise of fascism. We're sort of in conversion crisis mode, and we see the powers that be striking out in every way that they can, which is a great sign that we make them that nervous. They know that their days are numbered. They know that they are losing their credibility. They have a whole new PR campaign going on right now. It will run its course, but you can be sure in another month or two, we're going to see the third-party movement going strong again. Kamala Harris has made one public address that I've seen. That was her remarks after speaking with Netanyahu, where she kind of sounded like maybe she was opening her heart a little bit, if not actually doing anything differently, except to acknowledge that there's, a humanitarian catastrophe. It's not really different from what she said before. That's going to run its course, and I think people are going to be feeling really desperate and really in rebellion once again, and are going to be regretting if they don't have an anti-war, anti-genocide, climate emergency, pro-worker choice on every ballot around the country. So I really want to encourage everybody to ensure that we are getting those choices on the ballot. But I also really want to encourage us to think outside the box. At the end of the day, the real driver in social change is our social movements. It really is our movements out in the street. It really is grassroots mobilization. But we also have to challenge power. And I think what happened in France really does pose the question. Is there a strategy that we should be at least contemplating right now, whereby we could be joining forces in a strategic way? It's not easy to do because the rules of the game make it very hard even for parties to talk to each other. So this is challenging. They make it challenging on purpose because they don't want us to get together. And I'm just saying the same way that PSL and the Green Party are working together in the state of California and have worked together with a slate that has been a very productive and successful campaign. In the same way that our agendas really converge and the Greens have been becoming an eco-socialist party and much more of a socialist party. So the differences are really around the margins now. Having been through this many times, it's extremely exhilarating and empowering to be out there building our movements. But it's also true that empire has a lot of tools that they will continue to use against us. How long do we want these forces to be arrayed in that way? Do we want to think about how we can work together? The Greens, along with many independent socialist parties, for at least a decade have been working on a thing we used to call left, elect. Does anybody remember left, elect? A few people? Yeah, so we were pursuing this question before Bernie Sanders launched his campaign. How can we work together electorally? And we were just getting off the ground when Bernie Sanders announced his campaign, and we all see where that went. You cannot have a revolution in a counter-revolutionary party, period. So, in my view, this is still an open question. Should those of us who want to see a convergent, progressive left movement get together and brainstorm how to do this? Are there ways we can do this? Now, we may not be able to effectively do it until after the election, but many of us feel like we are in an absolute all-out crisis right now. The more we can be a unified front, we don't even have to wait for the election. Because if we're getting together, that is terrifying to them. I don't think Kamala Harris took the steps that she did and made herself look friendly to the anti-genocide movement. She didn't do that out of nowhere. She did that because we are a strong movement, because people like us are out in the streets getting our heads cracked and being showered with tear gas out of fire hoses now, like just happened, day before yesterday in DC. We are a strong movement, and they are terrified that that movement should become unified politically and do what France did. So I just want to leave that question open. To me, it was like arbitrary. How I got activated in the Greens was because things had, I had been a non-political social movement activist for most of my life, and saw us get beaten back and beaten back and beaten back, one issue at a time. And it was at that time that Ralph Nader jumped in, and I was, wow, this is a different kind of politics. So it was really who I happened to tune into at the time that I was really ready to move up to the political fight. Not to abandon the social fights one bit, but to do them both, to understand the necessity of political challenge. And so that's how I happen to be a Green, really. These are sort of like different traditions. They kind of become like circles of friends and circles of activists, which are very powerful because you do have to trust who you are working with, and you have to know who you are working with, which is why it's so important, I think, for us to keep working together. I so appreciate the work that PSL has been doing with the Answer Coalition, and they're bringing in other political campaigns to build solidarity on the ground. That's exactly where it has to start, and I want to give them a big shout out for doing that. And I would like to keep pushing this envelope because we are in a state of emergency. 1 million people are at risk for starving to death. They're at risk for the cholera and the polio and the other public health emergencies that are just skyrocketing right now in Gaza. This is an all-out crisis catastrophe, and I think it really requires us to think outside the box and to push our own envelopes, outside of our own timelines, outside of our own, one-year plan or four-year plan, to think about, is there something we can do now to help create a unified front against fascism, against nuclear destruction, against endless war and genocide? What can we do right now? Because the American people, this is a perfect storm. The American people have had it. 1 out of every 3 voters stayed home in 2020. This time it will be much, much higher. And it's going to be a 4-race, at least a 4-way race. 3 of those candidates are going to be pro-genocide, pro-war. What if they split the pro-war, pro-genocide vote, and we have a unified anti-war, anti-genocide telling the truth. They're more historical and social and network. Can we overcome that? I don't know, but shouldn't we at least try? That's my thought.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. One of the things that I like to say is, the Venn diagram is never going to be a circle. But if we are in agreement on 90-odd% of what we're talking about, then we should be able to be moving in the same direction. I love hearing that at the time that you activated into electoral politics, like the Green Party was there for you, right? And so I would love to hear a little bit about your story with PSL and what are the ways in which, PSL has been engaging on the ground. And, one of the things you spoke about too, Dr. Stein, just briefly, is the fact that we don't form coalition governments in this country. One party is in charge, and maybe they have a majority, in the houses, and maybe they don't. But we just don't form coalition governments. And that makes it hard for people of like-minded people of different parties to link arms and help move us in the same direction. So one of the things that we have to overcome is the fact that the system is set up to keep us divided even if we agree. What do you think, Ms. Garcia?
That's great. Well, I can talk a little bit about my personal experience and what attracted me to the PSL. So I joined the party in 2006. I was a college student at the time in New York City. And the party was small. The party was really small, and it's amazing to see how much growth we have had now. Just in the last 20 years, we have branches all over the country, in almost every major city. And the fact that we're able to get onto 22 states, thousands and thousands of signatures on a purely volunteer basis is just incredible. This is something, yeah. And I'm not because we're not just getting a signature, we're building organization. Because it's not just about, oh, come and vote for me on this day. No, we want people to join the movement, but they have to have practical ways to get involved. They have to be able to, in their own communities, organize against the very practical problems that the Democrats and the Republicans are fear-mongering around, right? This is not just like a moralistic, idealistic thing that we're talking about here. No, our people need stuff now, right? We know that. That's one of the things also that is a strength for our movement, if we go out there and talk to our people, is that we are going even into red states and red counties that are supposed to be Trump places. But we're talking about what our people's needs, right? And everybody needs housing, and everybody needs healthcare, and everybody needs food, and everybody needs retirement. And so when we lead with these basic needs, right, about what we're trying to fight for, even the Republicans will sign our petition. And so this is like it's the real basis actually for us to be hopeful, is that in fact the vast majority of people need socialism. They need socialism.
That's something to qualify.
And so that's what we're trying to do, and we've been very, intentional about leading our campaign in that way. We're socialists and proudly, and we have a legacy and a tradition that we're a part of. And that actually by us being real people and organizers every day in our communities and engaging in all of the struggles that affect us, whether that's immigrant rights, reproductive justice, Black Lives Matter, Free Palestine, and the sanctions on Cuba, Venezuela, all the different struggles that we're involved in, that shows in real life who we really are, what we're trying to do. And that speaks volumes. Because we can give a speech, but if we're not in the community, then it doesn't matter. We're not actually building power. Having people vote one day out of the year, every 4 years or every 2 years, does not build power. And so our little group has grown because we have serious, sincere working class people, honestly. And that's what attracted me to the party, because it was small. There were 6 people in New York City when I joined. But there were 6 people who were very serious, and they were sincere, and they were organizing around all these different issues. And at the time, I was in college, and I was organizing around student labor stuff with a lot of advocates. And it was, they were doing the right thing. The students didn't want to organize. of every age and every nationality that have been involved in the anti-war movement, that have a history in the reproductive justice movement, and I felt like, I don't know if socialism is going to happen, but if it's going to happen, it's going to be with these people. If it's going to happen, it's going to be with these people. And so much to do. I'd like to put my time and energy into that. And now, 20 years later, being able to see the party grow so much, it really is humbling, it's energizing, it's exciting, and I think that in part, the organizational model of the PSL is what has done that, is that we are building leaders. We are building young, working class, multinational leaders of all nationalities. And so even if the membership punches above our weight, because we have responsibilities, like it's not just you sign up and you're in it. No, we have requirements of membership that we are all responsible for. We have to pay dues. We have to be part of an area of work. We have to do an education program, a candidacy for at least a year. And for me, what was also important, being Chicana, coming from my background, is that they actually supported real-life socialist countries. And that meant something to me, because my family wasn't not political necessarily. They were not a bunch of socialists. But the fact that I was reading so-called socialists and they had no support for Cuba, I just felt like you are throwing stones from a glass house. Like you don't have a movement that's even close to Cuba, right? They actually made a revolution. You're criticizing them? So the party taught me about anti-imperialist struggles. And it taught me to have a backbone and defend, even when it's unpopular, the self-determination of nations, even when especially when they're under attack. And so we have to learn about Cuba and Venezuela. We have to learn about Syria. We have to protest against the Iraq War. We learn about Palestine. We were ready and able to organize mass demonstrations all across the country on October 8th because we already knew. We didn't have to start from scratch. We didn't have to have a debate. This is part of our political program. The liberation of Palestine was part of our political program. You cannot be a member of the PSL without defending the full liberation of Palestinian people. And that's why, in these moments, we're able to spin on a dime and organize demonstrations all over the country. And they get so scared because they say, oh, this is a conspiracy because look, they all have the same slogans. They all have the same slogans. Right, yeah, the same yellow signs. They can't even conceive that we go and print out signs. That we share slogans with each other. We say, like, we think about it. We sit in our room and say, okay, what's going to move people? Where are people at? Right? And then, when we realize people are not taking our platform, we say, okay, I think that was not the right slogan. Let's change it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, building that real organization of people who are building trust on a day-to-day, that has made us able to seem like we're really huge, but because we have a group of serious people, and they're connected by politics, not just by skin color, nationality, where we grew up. That's not going to be enough. So that's attracted me. Thank you.
We will take a group picture with everyone that's here. So I will encourage people to start moving up as I ask the last question, and perhaps it's a short answer question, hopefully, because we're about 2 minutes left. But if we had a system of government that engaged in coalition building, if we were able to build coalition governments, do you see a pathway wherein PSL and the Green Party and independents like Dr. Cornel West are able to come together and work together on policy, on issues, and in defense of community?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the short answer is absolutely yes. Even if we simply had ranked choice voting, it would actually now.
Shout out to our ranked choice voting workshop before we did.
I mean, to my mind, this is another reason to have a progressive conference of the parties. To bring the parties together, how can we specifically collaborate on the ground? Because by collaborating on the ground, we build solidarity for the long haul. But I am hard pressed to find differences in our agendas and in our policies. I don't see that. I mean, maybe I'm blind, maybe slight difference of emphasis. These are differences in history and strategies for organizing, but you know, I think we have everything to gain and nothing to lose by collaborating the sooner the better. And this is one of the areas. What should we be working together on? What should we be prioritizing? What has most bang for the buck here? And I think, you know, ranked choice voting, including at the presidential level, because in that way, we would immediately be working together and not in any way that could be divisive. The power that we have on the ground would all converge. And, you know, it's just a no-brainer that we can do that. You know, that's a place to begin. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Last words.
So I definitely don't disagree. I think we can move together. And I think that people should have lots of options. And that the candidates should earn people's votes. Right? We shouldn't self-censor ourselves ahead of time because we think one person hasn't figured out. The truth of the matter is nobody has it figured out. Neither the Green Party nor the PSO. We're all in an infancy stage, growing. And we need to, my caution or my hesitation or is to not be complacent. Because it's too easy for us to just sit together and say, yeah, okay, we agree, let's do it. And there's millions of people around the country who are unorganized. Like, we gotta get out there and talk to each other. And I might think I have the way, and they might think they have the way, but the true test is us to get out there, do it, and see who has the way. See who's able to recruit people, right? And we can work together, and we have worked together. So it's not really an issue of are we working together. Jill Stein has come to plenty of our events, we've seen them, and she's speaking in the streets. Like, this is not the problem. The problem is that we have millions of unorganized people. And so instead of over-focusing and being a little bit too comfortable and saying, let's just talk to each other, we got to get out there and talk to the people. And then we'll be able to see who had the right strategy in practice, not ahead of time. We can't see it ahead of time.